Join our family of creators. Your support means the world to us. Subscribe now to the Content Creator channel. Your support keeps us motivated and helps us bring you fresh, exciting content every week. Hit that subscribe button and be part of our journey. The ground is shifting in Texas politics. The stakes for 2026 have never been higher. New political maps drawn by the Texas GOP are now the law of the land. These maps are not just lines on paper. They are powerful tools that will shape who has power in Texas for the next decade. Every voter, every candidate, every party will feel the effects of these changes. The fight for the future of Texas starts with understanding these new boundaries, which have been carefully designed to lock in advantages and minimize risks for the party in power. This is the new reality for the upcoming 2026 election cycle. As of today, October 21st, 2025, the latest major update is that the U.S. Supreme Court has declined to hear the final significant appeal challenging these maps. This decision, handed down earlier this year, effectively ends the primary legal battles. Plan C-2193 for the State House plan, S-2168 for the State Senate are now set in stone for the 2026 elections. This legal finality means both parties must now operate within these new lines. There are no more what-ifs. The battlefield is defined and the strategies for winning must adapt to this new solid political geography. The new maps created after the 2020 census brought significant changes across Texas. The biggest changes hit fast-growing urban and suburban areas. Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex Houston area suburbs around Austin and North Texas. Districts were redrawn to protect Republican incumbents. Tarrant County was a key focus. Tarrant has been trending more Democratic. Map drawers split the county into multiple districts. They mixed urban voters with conservative rural voters from surrounding areas. South Texas, along the border, saw big changes. It's historically a Democratic stronghold with a large Hispanic population. The new maps aim to create more competitive or Republican-leaning districts. Parts of the Rio Grande Valley were combined with rural, conservative areas to the north. That was a response to recent Republican gains with some Hispanic voters. Congressional District 15, stretching from near San Antonio to the border, is a prime example. In Houston, changes were dramatic. Harris County is the state's largest and a Democratic hub. The new maps use packing. They created a very safe Democratic 38th district and made surrounding Republican districts safer. Reliable Democratic voters were pulled out of competitive suburbs and packed into deep blue urban districts. Finally, Austin's power was diluted. Travis County is the most Democratic county in Texas. Under the old map, it was mostly inside one district. The new map cracks Austin into several pieces. The city and suburbs are split among 6 congressional districts. Most stretch into deeply conservative rural areas. That spreads Austin's Democratic vote so thin it can't elect more than one representative. The goal of these new maps was clear from the start, to solidify Republican control in a state that is rapidly becoming more diverse. Texas has grown a lot, mostly from new Hispanic residents and Black residents. These groups often vote for Democrats. The new maps, however, work to dilute the voting power of these growing communities. They do this by packing Democratic voters into a few districts, cracking them by spreading them across many Republican-leaning districts. This tactic is called gerrymandering, and it is a central part of the story of these new Texas maps. The result is a political landscape that looks very different from the Texas of 10 years ago. Even if more people vote for Democrats in total across the state, the way the districts are drawn makes it very hard for them to win more seats in the Texas legislature or in the U.S. Congress. This creates a disconnect between the popular vote and the actual representation in government. For the 2026 elections, this means Republicans start with a significant built-in advantage, while Democrats face a much steeper climb to gain any ground. The game has been tilted before the first vote is even cast. For Texas Democrats, the new maps present a significant challenge. The number of truly competitive districts has shrunk. Before the redraw, several suburban districts were trending their way. Now most of those districts have been fortified for Republicans. Democrats have fewer opportunities to flip seats and gain power. Their path to winning a majority in the Texas House has become much narrower and more difficult. Their path to flipping congressional seats has become much narrower and more difficult. They are left with a smaller number of districts where they can realistically compete. The packing and cracking strategy has hit Democrats hard. In urban areas like Houston, their voters have been concentrated into fewer, overwhelmingly Democratic districts. Dallas, their voters have been concentrated into fewer, overwhelmingly Democratic districts. This makes those seats extremely safe, but it wastes votes. A District 1 with 80% counts the same as one with 51%. Meanwhile, in suburban areas, their voters have been cracked and spread out across GOP-leaning districts. Meanwhile, in rural areas, their voters have been cracked and spread out across GOP-leaning districts. This prevents them from forming a majority in any single one. Their voters are too concentrated. This new reality forces a change in strategy for the Democratic Party. Instead of competing across many suburban districts, they must focus resources on a handful of targets. They need to increase voter turnout in their safe districts to boost statewide numbers. Focus on statewide races. Governor. Focus on statewide races. U.S. Senator. The maps for the legislature do not directly affect these statewide races. The maps for Congress do not directly affect these statewide races. Discouragement from gerrymandering can lead to lower turnout, which could hurt statewide candidates. Looking ahead to 2026, the outlook for Democrats in legislative races is tough. They will likely hold on to safe urban seats, but gaining new ground will be an uphill battle. Their best hope lies in long-term demographic changes. Even in some newly drawn Republican districts, populations are growing and diversifying. Over time, these districts may become competitive again. But for 2026, the map has created a strong Republican firewall that's hard to break. Their main job will be to defend current seats and look for unexpected opportunities. Section 5. Key districts to watch. Even with maps designed to reduce competition, a few key districts will be the center of attention in 2026. One of the most watched will be Congressional District 15 in South Texas. Congressional District 15, close up. It was redrawn to be a toss-up and was successfully flipped by Republicans in 2022. It will remain a major battleground. Both parties will pour millions of dollars into this race. It represents a symbolic fight for the loyalty of Hispanic voters in the Rio Grande Valley. Another area to watch, the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs. While many districts were made safer for Republicans, some remain on the edge of being competitive. Congressional District 24, parts of Dallas, parts of Tarrant, parts of Denton. It was drawn to favor the GOP, but demographic changes are making it less predictable. A strong Democratic candidate with enough funding could make this race interesting. Similarly, in the Texas House, several suburban seats around Fort Worth and Dallas will be closely watched to see if Democrats can make any inroads despite the unfavorable lines. In the Houston area, the focus will be on Congressional District 7. This district includes parts of West Houston and its suburbs. It used to be a Republican stronghold but was flipped by Democrats in 2018. The new map made it slightly more Democratic to help shore up Republican incumbents in neighboring districts. However, it remains a district with a mix of voters, and it could be a target if the political environment shifts. The race here will be a test of whether Democrats can hold on to their recent suburban gains, even when the maps are drawn to contain them. Finally, keep an eye on local races, in places where the lines were drawn to protect incumbents. It is important to understand that the new maps affect different types of elections in different ways, statewide versus local. One big ballot box for the whole state, many small district-shaped boxes for local races. The maps for the U.S. House directly determine who is likely to win. The maps for the Texas House directly determine who is likely to win. The maps for the Texas Senate directly determine who is likely to win. This is called a down-ballot race. In these races, the district lines are everything. A Republican in a district drawn to be 60% Republican has a huge advantage. A Democrat in a district drawn to be 70% Democratic is almost guaranteed to win. The maps effectively predetermine the outcome of most of these local legislative races. However, the maps do not apply to statewide races. When Texans vote for governor, everyone in the state votes together. When Texans vote for lieutenant governor, everyone in the state votes together. When Texans vote for attorney general, everyone in the state votes together. When Texans vote for U.S. Senator, everyone in the state votes together. There are no districts for these races. The winner is the person who gets the most votes across the entire state. This means while Republicans have a lock on the legislature, Democrats still have a chance to win a statewide office if they can get more total votes. The 2026 election will feature a race for governor. The outcome will depend on statewide voter turnout, not on gerrymandered district lines. This creates a split political reality in Texas. The state could elect a Democratic governor while sending a strong Republican majority to the legislature and to Congress. This has happened in other states and leads to divided government. From the moment they were passed in 2021, the new Texas maps faced a storm of legal challenges. Civil rights groups, League of United Latin American Citizens, NAACP, they argued the maps were an illegal racial gerrymander. The lawsuit said the maps intentionally diluted the voting power of Black Texans, Hispanic Texans. 95% of the state's population growth over the last decade was from those groups. They argued this violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The cases were first heard in a federal district court in El Paso. In late 2023, a 3-judge panel ruled some districts, especially in Houston, Dallas, were drawn with discriminatory intent. The court found map makers had deliberately packed minority communities and cracked minority communities. That ruling was a victory for challengers and hinted at redraws before 2026. Texas immediately appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The state's lawyers, led by the Texas Attorney General's office, said the maps were based on partisanship, helping Republicans, not race. They called it politics as usual. The Supreme Court put the case on hold for many months. The key question: can you separate race from partisanship? In early 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court sided with Texas. The conservative majority reversed the lower court, saying challengers hadn't proven race was the primary factor. The court declined final appeals, effectively ending the legal fight. The GOP-drawn maps were upheld as constitutional. No court-ordered changes before 2026. The current political map stays in place. Beyond the politics and legal battles, these maps have a real impact on people and communities. When a city or neighborhood is cracked into multiple districts, it loses its unified voice. For example, a community that was once represented by a single legislator might now be a small part of 3 different districts or 4 different districts. This makes it much harder for residents to get the attention of their elected officials on local issues like roads, schools, parks. Their concerns are diluted because they are no longer a major part of any single representative's constituency. Maps also have a powerful effect on voter turnout. When a district is drawn to be non-competitive, it can discourage people from voting. If a voter knows that their preferred party has no chance of winning in their district, they may feel like their vote does not matter. This can lead to lower participation in elections, which weakens our democracy. On the other hand, a safe district can also mean that the only election that truly matters is the primary election. The winner of the Republican primary in a safe GOP district or the Democratic primary in a safe Democratic district is almost certain to win the general election. This focus on primary elections can lead to more extreme candidates. In a primary, candidates are appealing to the most passionate and ideological voters of their party, not to the general electorate. This can result in representatives who are less willing to compromise or work with the other party. The new Texas maps have created more of these safe, hyper-partisan districts. This trend could lead to an even more polarized political environment in the Texas legislature and in Washington, D.C., making it harder to find common ground and solve problems that affect everyone. Ultimately, maps are about power. They determine which groups of people have their voices heard in government and which do not. The new Texas maps were drawn to ensure that the growing minority populations in the state do not translate into more political power for the Democratic Party. For the communities that have been cracked, the message is that their growth does not equal influence. For the communities that have been packed, the message is that their growth does not equal influence. The 2026 elections will be the first major test of how these communities respond. Will they be discouraged, or will they organize to make their voices heard despite the challenging lines? The new Texas maps have locked in a strong advantage for the Republican Party ahead of the 2026 elections. With legal challenges now exhausted, the GOP is poised to maintain solid control over the Texas legislature, the state's congressional delegation. Most races for these seats will not be competitive. The outcomes have been largely decided by how the district lines were drawn. Republicans have built a firewall against the state's changing demographics, ensuring their power for the rest of the decade. This was the primary goal of the redistricting process, a success from that perspective. For Democrats, the path forward is narrow and steep. Their focus must shift from winning a majority to defending their current seats, concentrating resources on a very small number of target districts. Their best chances for a major victory in 2026 lie in statewide races such as the election for governor, which are not affected by the district maps. Success in these races will depend on mobilizing their base, persuading independent voters across the entire state, a task made more difficult if gerrymandering depresses local turnout. The disconnect between statewide results and legislative representation is likely to grow. The real-world consequences will be felt in communities across Texas. The division of neighborhoods and cities will make it harder for local residents to have their voices heard. The increase in non-competitive districts may lead to lower voter turnout, more polarized politics as the primary election becomes the only one that matters. The fight over these maps was not just about party politics. It was about representation. The results of the 2026 election will show the full effect of these new lines on the balance of power in Texas. As we look toward 2026, the main story is one of entrenched power demographic change. The one thing to watch is whether Democratic turnout in statewide races can overcome the built-in Republican advantage in the legislature. Well, that's what to watch.